Well, welcome everybody. We're so excited that you're joining us from wherever you are in the world. Hoping that you're staying safe during this wild season we find ourselves in. But we're here at Online Open Day and here to learn a little bit more about worship leading and songwriting. And so without further ado, let me introduce to you the guests that we have joining us. We have Hannah Hobbs, who I love dearly, and she's an incredible songwriter and pastor. It's interesting to describe the job roles separately, but it's so intertwined. Hannah Hobbs is a worship pastor at our city campus and a songwriter, obviously, in her own right, but also songwrites for all of our brands across Hillsong Church. I hope I did that justice. Please correct me if I didn't.
I mean, that was great.
Thanks. Can't take it back now. Alex, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself after that, but I can definitely do it.
I can do it. Do you want me to do it?
Yes, do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander Pappas. He's a pastor, a leader, a brilliant communicator, a songwriter, a long-term songwriting collaborator friend of mine. He tells me that I am in his top 35 best friends in the world. I took that offensively. Take it as you will. And he's recently launched his own music, so his own artist music, which is very exciting. You may have heard a couple of his songs. And just an all-around great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Pappas.
Wow.
I couldn't have done it better.
What an intro.
Welcome, Alex. We've also got people loving your giggle flow, Hannah, so feel free to just let that fly during this class.
Right.
Hey team, for everyone joining us, we're going to have kind of like an interview style class, just to really pull out some wisdom from Alex and Hannah, and ultimately we want it to be a really interactive experience for you as well. So if you've got questions as we go through some of the questions I've put together, I'd love you to just pop them in the chat so I can ask them on your behalf. We'd love you to leave this class having your questions answered and knowing a little bit more about the process of songwriting and also worship leading in the season and space that we find ourselves in as a church. So I'm so grateful that you've joined us today. And I thought we might start with a few fun questions. And I literally Googled fun questions to ask songwriters, and this is what I got. So you're welcome in advance. Hannah, what instruments did you play in high school?
I dabbled in the bassoon. I played French horn in the concert bands. I played bass guitar in the stage band, the jazz band. And let's just go with that.
What are those classic overachievers?
I mean, if you heard me play the bassoon or the French horn, you would take that back.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for it. Alex, what about you?
Well, I guess I'm just not as cool as Hannah. I was just as a youth group kid, so I played guitar, bass when no one was there to play bass, and I must say that some weeks I really killed the djembe. You know, when there was no drummer as well. Anyone can relate. That's it for me.
Man, I wish I'd asked you to bring video proof, but next time. I love that most people started either like full-on concert band orchestra in school, or like it seems that the other end of the spectrum is the youth group kid just having a go, which praise God for the youth group leaders, right? Who actually do just spot potential and give us a go. Anyway, moving on. Hannah, dream like blue sky, who would you most like to collaborate with on a song?
I mean, I'm just going to say Celine Dion.
Figured as much. Does she write her own music?
I don't think so. So that's going to be like a world first. in a lot of ways.
For you, I think it's possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alex, what about you?
It's Hannah Hobbs. That's my dream situation. So
The
yeah,
dream has been realized, FYI.
that's the thing. I just keep living the dream. That's it.
I love it. Anyone other than Hannah Hobbs though? I'm like,
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Okay. We're not settled with that answer. Okay. This is actually a little crazy, and like my answer has always been Ryan Tedder. And that answer is probably like slightly less now than a guy named John Bellion. He's a writer, producer, and yeah. Sorry, Ryan, if you're watching. Do you think he's watching, Ryan? No. Okay.
possible. We can send this through to him later.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. This one for you, Alex, given that you have just started releasing your own solo project, which is super exciting, and I hope we get to hear a little bit more about it later. If you could open for anyone or co-headline, let's not just say open, if you could like do any kind of like touring with another person, who would it be? Apart from Hannah Hobbs.
Apart from the Best Friends tour, I would probably have to say to support or in any way the Killers. For me, like Brandon Flowers is just he's up there for me. You know?
Interesting. I feel like that says so much about people, just figuring out who they'd want to like.
Do you guys think I could pull off like the sequin suits? Like, be honest.
Listen, from what I've seen you wear in Christmas spec, I feel like you could pull off most things, Alex. Hannah, let me chuck you a question. What would you be doing right now if music wasn't your career?
I'm just going to say the first thing that comes to mind, but one of my favorite movies is The Intern with Anne Hathaway. So I'd probably be doing some kind of like online startup that allows you to kind of ride bikes in the office, choose your own hours, but also work really hard and be, just killing it. That was such a bad answer, but that's the first thing that came to my mind.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
And a great idea. Being your own boss, love it. What about you, Alex?
If I wasn't a music artist, I would either just work at Hannah Hobbs gym, or B, I would love to be a sketch actor, like short skit, like comedy.
Be very good at that.
And if you need more information, just go over to Alex's Instagram page, look at his recent reels. He's been dabbling.
Yeah, I'm doing a soft launch of my sketch career.
Yeah.
I love it. I look forward to watching it. Hannah, who would you say inspired you to make music or to songwrite, to even get started?
Yeah, I think the church that I grew up in, I became a Christian when I was 13. I didn't grow up in church, but from then on, the next 10 years or so, my local church, we had a worship pastor. His name is Sam Towns. He's actually the worship creative, I think, still the creative oversight in Tasmania, the Hillsong Church creative oversight in Tasmania. And but back then at our old church, he was amazing. He would get up and lead worship every weekend. He would sing original worship songs, and I got to like witness it and watch it in real time. I didn't even know that was possible. Oh, my phone's ringing. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I didn't even know that could be a career or something that you could do, write music that was faith-based. So it was such an eye-opening, journey for me. And I sat in his office for the very first time and played him a song. And I didn't even really know I'd written a song. And he nearly fell off his chair. He was so encouraging. He was such a huge believer in me. I was 14 years old at the time, and the song was not good, I can guarantee you. But his like belief and kind of just excitement about this thing that I'd stumbled into was so full on that I really think that I have to like attribute so much of me wanting to go down this path beyond just the fact that I felt like God had called me to it. And oh my gosh, this is really bad. I'm tempted to say who the person is that's calling
Is it
me.
Alex calling you or
Alex? But anyway, I'm going to stop talking. But yeah, that was the pivotal moment for me, and he was very much an inspiring part of all of that.
Great. I love that. And I think that really speaks to what just touched on earlier, is where you start in like a youth group setting, right? And just for all of us, obviously everyone attending and us as well, we are worship leaders and songwriters in our own right, but then the job and responsibility of us as Christian leaders to actually be encouraging and pulling out the gold in others. And I think sometimes as a creative, that can be difficult to focus on both. And sometimes you feel like they're mutually exclusive, like after you've finished what you're doing, then you can pour into someone else. But being able to do that at the same time is such an incredible pursuit, I think. I know, especially within our churches, just seeing the gold in other people. And I think you and Alex both do that incredibly. So thank you for what you're sowing into the next generation. But what I thought we might jump into, guys, just for your context, we're kind of going to be going in between worship and songwriting, again, not mutually exclusive, but how they kind of work together. But also just wanted to touch on, just at the start, how worship and worship leading has somewhat changed given the online environment that most of us find ourselves in. And I understand that across the globe, we find ourselves in different levels of lockdown, and the pandemic has had implications for all of our churches, and some of us still find ourselves in that period of lockdown, and others have more freedoms, but it has affected all of us, which is such a wild concept to consider, that everyone on the globe has been affected, every church has been affected in some way, which can unite us as well. But I wondered, Alex, what does worship look like for you in this season? And how has it changed for you individually, not in terms of a corporate setting?
Yeah, I mean, so I think especially for those of you who don't know, like we live in, those of us who live in Sydney are in a backwards country where we had a bunch of freedoms back from COVID, and then we went back into the strictest lockdowns we were ever in. And that is literally what we are currently living in. And I have a dog sleeping on my lap doing this session. So, you know, the landscape has changed a little bit the last little bit. But I think, you know, the last 18 months, fundamentally, the question is that we're all probably asking ourselves and feeling is essentially, is worship about the way I feel, or is worship a response? And I think the short answer is it's both. Because that's the goodness of God, is that it is designed for us to glorify him, but because he is so good, it is about the way we feel. It is that we get to experience him, we get to know him. And so it's been, I'm sure we've all experienced, from losing the opportunity to have corporate worship to watching worship moments on a computer screen. And for me, at times, literally leading worship from this small little study with my dog biting me while I'm trying to do so. And it's like, for me, like, long story short, which I'm sure we'll talk more about worship and all that over the next little bit, but ultimately it's the daily journey of figuring out, like, today I honestly kind of need worship. I need worship for me. And to get me through today, like, I need worship, and that is how good he is, that he shows up in his presence, speaks to us and moves us and leads us. And other days where I'm good. Like today, I'm choosing that worship is like to glorify you, God. And there's definitely good days and bad days, and days I've succeeded and days I've failed at it. But it's that tug of war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And then from like a corporate perspective, how have you personally experienced and seen it change within our church, leading worship online and leading a congregation you can't see? How has it changed your approach in leading? I mean, I think you were the first one to lead us from your personal home, leading the whole of Hillsong Church in Australia and online. What was it like?
I have a bizarre approach to worship, which like I probably one day I'll find a better word to describe this, but I have a because this word sounds negative, but I think of it positively. I have a stubborn approach to leading worship. So it's like if I'm leading worship for a gathering of, let's just say it's a gathering of leaders that potentially is one of the harder groups of people to lead in worship. The irony, but you know, sometimes like church leaders in a meeting or this or that can be quite difficult to lead into worship. And I have this stubborn spirit that anytime I get the opportunity to lead worship, like I am like digging so deep into the Holy Spirit. I'm digging so like I'm stubbornly like believing and like you know, essentially trying to stand in the gap for people to experience the presence of God. And so I think in a lot of ways that has led me to like when I'm leading from this study and literally I can't see anyone. It is all just like I have no idea if anyone at home, but it is just that like I think it's that unseen lean in and I suppose like stubbornness of like pursuit of the Holy Spirit that I think translates to those moments that it's just like I hope I can't speak how it actually translates, but I hope it is just like, man, like there's worship happening right now. There is true worship happening and I want to lean in. And I hope that it came across that way.
And it absolutely does. And I think that's so interesting for us as people on the other side of that, because everyone's experienced it this year. Like every single one of us has worshipped on a Zoom this year or some online platform, be it YouTube or whatever it is. And I'm assuming, I'll put my hand up, have been just watching and cool, this is happening and I'm listening in, and it's kind of nice to not have to drive to church. Do you know what I mean? Vulnerability. But then at the same time, I've so appreciated that every time I see it, I like, you can feel the stubborn approach, like there is worship happening and I feel like I can enter into that presence if I choose to. And so coming from the worship leader, actually having that approach, really always having that that approach to create that or the place where the Holy Spirit can come and dwell is so important. So thank you for that pursuit. And I think that's also something we can really learn from as worship leaders, to continually approach with that perspective in the online space. I'd say that's awesome. Team, just so you know, you can ask questions as we go. If you have any, just pop them in the chat. Hannah, any advice for us worship leaders in the same situation, leading corporate worship online? I know that you've had to do it yourself. What are some just basic tips that you've come across that's really helped you engage with people that you can't see?
Yeah, it's been such an interesting time. I think whether it's worship leading or even just encouraging people over Zoom on a prayer meeting or something like that, I try to remember the people on the call and individual people. Like I think there's something really powerful about thinking about one person, whether it's one person in your church or one person on your team that you're leading, and think about their circumstance, think about what they've been through in recent months, and think about how much they might need to meet with God that day. And, you know, maybe they're desperate for a moment of refreshing in the presence of God, or maybe they're in great need of encouragement at that time. And so trying to just keep people at the front of your mind and your heart. And I think when you do that, I know for me, it changes the things that I say. It changes the way that I lead. And because, you know, if I think about God, one thing we know about the heart of God is that he loves his people. God loves his people. And he did everything, you know, through sending his son on the cross, did everything he could so that he could be in relationship with his people and we could freely come to him. And it's an amazing thought. Like God thinks about everyone. And I think in our pursuit of following Christ, part of that transformation that happens in us as we think more about him is, oh, so he thinks about people. What happens when I think about people? How does my heart become kind of molded and shaped. And so I would encourage you guys, you know, in general as worship leaders, not just online, but to be thinking about the people in our congregation, think about their stories, wherever they come from. Like it kind of stirs faith, to be honest, because you get out of your own feelings as well, your own circumstance, and remember, you know, there are people here who are desperate for a breakthrough or desperate for a physical healing. They've been sick and bound by this ongoing issue in their life. And maybe they'll be healed today when we lead worship. Maybe they'll be set free when we do the prayer time together. So yeah, my encouragement would just be to think about the people.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think like in asking that question, I'm very conscious, like we've become super focused on like the pandemic and our approach in the pandemic. But I mean, the Christian story spans so long and it will span so far after we're out of this as well. So I love that encouragement, Hannah. Thank you. That it has always been and will always be about the people of God and the people in our churches. And that is the most important focus for us at all times, regardless of whether it's online or in the room. So thank you. I wonder if we can just pivot back to what we briefly touched on at the beginning. And Hannah, I'll ask you as a worship pastor, so obviously you're a songwriter and write some incredible songs, and we'll be hearing some very shortly, some new songs from you, which I'm excited about. But how do you, as a worship pastor, how do you approach raising the next generation of worshipers and songwriters within church? Is that an active pursuit? Is it intentional? Or talk us through that.
Yeah, I think like going back to that story I told a little bit earlier about my first worship pastor who believed in me. Yeah. It really did change the course of my whole life. And you guys would probably all relate to this, but if you've ever had someone like really believe in you and back you in, like I remember the very first time someone asked me to lead worship, it was like at what we called teen church at the time. And it was in the garage of our church in the dingiest little room ever. And I remember at the time feeling like, I don't think this person, number one, realizes that I can't sing. Number two, realizes I don't want to do this. And number three, I've never done it before. Like I genuinely don't know what I'm doing. And I think you might have like contacted the wrong person. But at the same time, in the midst of all of that, there was this sense of, I know they didn't get the wrong person. I can't believe that my youth leader is asking me to do this. I feel so backed and so believed in, and like, maybe I can do it. I don't know. And that feeling, it's just, you guys would have had it all at some point in your life, hopefully. And it's just this sense of like someone backs you in and speaks to your potential, not just the lowest capacity you could be, but more like beyond even maybe what you imagine you could do. And so anyway, I don't always get it right as a leader, but I try to expand my thoughts about what people could be, and also ask God to give me his heart for people in our team. And when you see it, just back it in, like where you can in a safe space, give them an opportunity that is like, not just like covering them so much that they couldn't make a mistake, but let them do something that they feel the weight of and they feel the responsibility of, and watch them come to the table. Mm-hmm. And I think like something Alex and I have worked together for a long time, and we've talked about this so many times over the years, but it's like around that, I also, our team, it's kind of part of our team culture. Like we're also making sure we're doing as a leader everything we can to set that person up to win. So a really practical example would be, as a worship leader, if someone's leading worship in front of our church or to our church for the first time, we don't say to them like, hey, it's Sunday morning, it's 9 a.m. The room's a bit slow to fill. Why don't you just, for your first time ever leading worship, start the service like leading Oceans? Like we don't do that, because that would be a risk, and that there's a good chance that might not fly in that moment. Maybe it will, and we'd all be impressed. But we're doing things like giving them a song that pretty much is going to go anyway. So like think about a song like What a Beautiful Name or something like that. Like our church knows it. You could pretty much, this is exaggerated, but almost sing it in the wrong key. But still, when you get to the bridge, people are still going to be like, "You have no rival." So it's going to go anyway.
Yeah.
So there's like, you're backing that person in, but you're also setting them up to make sure that they win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of like this dual responsibility we have to believe in people, but also to like be strategic about it. Or like another example just quickly would be like, if that person's leading for the first time, don't put a brand new drummer on who's never played in church before, but put a solid team behind them so that they can win and do well, that kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Alex, I'm sure, love that. Thank you, Hannah, for sharing that. I think that's really important for all of us to know. And I know that probably a lot of us are still on our own journey of figuring out where we are, what we're doing, what the calling of God is on our life. But I think if we're constantly trying to think of who we're bringing through and who we're actually championing at the same time, I think it's something that I wish I'd done earlier. And I think that's also just a really important thing for us as Christians to be doing, is looking out for those around us as well, not so wholly focusing on us and our journey. I'm sure, just a little piece of advice from me. But Alex, do you see songwriting and worship leading as two different jobs and functions? Or do you think your ability or calling to do one makes the other stronger? If that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I think I do see them as two different jobs or functions. And I say that because like they're both have been crafts and skills that I have had to like work so diligently and individually. But yeah, in saying that, the two make, like, having both makes both stronger, because like Hannah was saying before, and said so well, is like when you're worship leading and you're thinking about the church, that changes. Like, then if you can do that, if you can live that, then you can write songs so much better. Because one thing we talk about in our circles as well is sometimes there's the most like beautiful, devotional, incredible song that comes out of the house that it's just like, wow, that's so personal. Wow, that's wildly personal. And I don't think that's everyone else's story. And so which isn't a bad thing. And there's absolutely a space for that. But I think that worship leader heart, if you're doing it right, yeah, and you steward that well, then yeah, you do have the ability to go like, man, I'm thinking about the widow that's come to church with her kids. Like, man, I'm thinking about the family member that is sick. Man, I'm thinking about what are they going to sing? And you know, so like taking that into a room when you're writing songs, like that's to me like when you get the chills, you know, like it's so much less when I go, yeah, I had a horrible week, and like this, you're like, and this is nice. Like that's good. Like it is like, that is a nice feeling, like to say like, wow, this song that we're writing is ministering to me right now. But like the moments where you go like, man, I'm thinking about Stu from you know, Thursday night, and like I cannot wait for like him to be able to sing these words. And so yeah, like I think they both sort of contribute to one another.
I love that. That's an incredible answer, and very much supports what we're trying to get across in terms of the people. And when you're thinking about that, what comes out naturally is going to benefit them corporately, which is what the goal is, isn't it? I wondered, Alex, if you could just talk us through, obviously we mentioned that you're starting to write your own songs, which is so exciting. We're really cheering you on. But how has your approach changed in writing songs? Because obviously you're talking about writing corporate worship songs, and now you're releasing music under your name. Can you talk us through your songwriting process and just and how it may have changed and how you're approaching it for your solo work?
Yeah, totally. I did see as well that livemax@gmail.com, she asked if Hannah and I studied at college, and I did 3 years. I know Hannah did. It was in trimesters at the time, right? You did a full
I did
year.
a full year and then had to, circle back on a
Had to
subject or
bounce.
two, but we got there.
Yes, we did, and both of us worked for college as well for a time. We met with Hannah as my teacher. She did not like me, but we are best friends now, so that is so good. And yeah, so like I said, before, funny, my songwriting approach for this project, because I won't bore you with the details, but years ago I felt called to do this project, and initially I was like, okay, I'll do it, but it's not going to be Christian because I don't want it to get in the way of what we do as a church. Like, and I felt a very sarcastic voice of the Holy Spirit say, oh, haha, because that's how I invented light, that it could get in the way of itself. And I said, sarcastic point taken, Lord, and carried on. And so ultimately, like I felt like I was meant to, write songs that were Christian in nature and spoke to people's Mondays. Our senior pastor often speaks like that. We want to be preaching to people's Mondays. We don't want to just encourage them for Sunday and then you walk out the exact same way you walked in. You want something tangible to get you through the week, because getting through the week is tough at times. And so ultimately, like, I've had a lot of fun with this project because I kind of found a sweet spot of, like, I grew up not writing worship music. Like, I grew up in I started writing music because I was in a ska band. And if some of you probably don't even know what ska is, SKA, you can go and Google it. So I kind of grew up and then like Americana, like acoustic singer songwriter, like just telling stories, whether they were real stories or not or fake stories, like just kind of telling stories. And then I stopped doing that completely and just wrote worship music for the next decade. And then funny enough, like kind of doing this project, like in a lot of ways, like it's sort of storytelling of like being a Christian, because like ultimately my prayer is that these songs would help demystify what it means to be a Christian a little bit. But again, like I sort of think even for me in that space, like to be an encouragement to people, like I don't just want it to be my story. And Hannah's actually reminded me of this, like when we actually went away last December to write a bunch of these songs, and we're chatting, and I was kind of just like, I don't want it to be just my experiences. I don't want it to be just my stories, because I want these to be relatable moments. And one song, I'm going to do a shameless plug, but I wrote it with Hannah as well. And it's one of my favorite songs I've ever written. And it's a song called Idaho that comes out next week. It's the title track of the EP, and it's where I'm from. But ultimately, like, I think the crazy thing about it is it's fully, completely, it's my salvation moment. Oh my gosh, Hannah, thank you. It's my salvation moment. Like the key lyric to the song, which Hannah came up with, but I was right in that place when the rubber hit the road that you brought Damascus here to Idaho. And I know that 99% of the people who ever listen to this song are not from Idaho, but those people that listen to it did have a salvation moment that they will like inherently relate to. And so like if you're a songwriter wanting to write worship music, you obviously want to write with people in mind. But again, like if you're writing not worship music and you write with people in mind, like you write like for them to like relate, like that's when you go like, I don't even know what this song is about, but like I am feeling this on like deep levels. And I think that's because I believe music was created by God for God, and even songs that aren't explicitly written to glorify him, he finds a way. You have spiritual experiences with it. But again, like just to reiterate, like writing with people in mind, like writing for them to find themselves within a story, like that's beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. We're so excited to hear Idaho, link in the chat. And we're so excited for you, Alex. Really so stoked that a project that's been in your heart for so long is coming to fruition, and again, cheering you on. So thank you for sharing that. team, we are going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes. If you do have questions, chuck them in the chat. I do have one from German. Hannah, what do you consider as the most important thing for a healthy worship culture?
Forgive me, there is a garbage truck driving past my door right now. So if there's background noise, that's why. What do I consider the most important thing for a healthy worship culture? I guess in terms of like, if we're talking about team health, like health within your creative team, what is the most important thing? I think a quick answer would just be one thing that I realized during this leading over Zoom experience over the last particularly few months is how much we miss our team, as in like our audio team, our video team, our musicians, our singers. Like that experience of leading people alone, it's only been once or twice for me, but you forget how powerful it is to serve together. And I would just say in terms of team culture, like just having such a camaraderie amongst the team that there's like some of our audio guys, they're the best. They've been on our team for like a decade. Amazing people. A lot of them are dads and parents on our team. They give their lives. They get here before us and they leave after us when it comes to serving at church on a weekend. And I think what's really important is to just have this deep kind of mutual respect and appreciation for each other, because you end up spending a ton of hours together. And it's way more fun when you enjoy the time and when people feel appreciated. I find that when they do, when there is that healthy sense of like, we're for each other, people are happy to be a part of things for a long time, and longevity becomes just the natural overflow of that. But when people don't feel appreciated, then it becomes like, oh, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So trying to fight for that respect and camaraderie amongst our team, and just taking interest, I think, in other people. Like, how is your family? How are your kids? Like asking questions that go beyond that first layer of like, how's your week? Cool. Okay, let's do this. Sound check. But trying to be specific, stuff like that, I think is helpful. I hope that was the question. I kind of just answer from a team perspective, but
I think that's incredible. And I think the theme that I've seen come through both yours and Alex's answers today has just been people. And I think it is being honest as creatives and worship leaders and songwriters. It's quite easy for the focus to become about yourself and what you're doing and what you need to achieve and your calling. And we're all naturally thinking that way just as humans, not just as creatives. But consistently reminding ourselves about who it's about first, of Jesus, and then our people and our church, and building that culture of it's about the people. I think you've expressed really well of just how to go about that and how to try and build that culture and actually caring for people and knowing them more than just serving with them on a Sunday is a great place to start. So that's actually all we have time for today, but I did just want to thank you all for joining us, and please give us a silent round of applause for Alex and Hannah. We're so appreciative of your time, and also just appreciative of everything that you're contributing to our church and the church on a global scale. I know it takes a lot of time and effort and the pursuit of Jesus to actually be producing the songs that you're producing and singing and getting out there. So thank you for putting the time aside and sacrificing to do that for us. We're appreciative. And for everyone joining us for Online Open Day, what I did just want to do is, as you're aware, every person who attends a session goes in the chance to win a piece of merch. And so I'm just going to do this little random generator that our project manager sent us through to make sure that we are randomly choosing who is getting today's merch. So without further ado, let me pop this in. And awesome. So the person who is winning our merch, I'm sure, drum roll from Alex, is Sarah M. So congratulations. If you can DM me your email address, Sarah, then we'll be able to send you an email, and you can it will give you all the details to retrieve your prize. So chuck me your email address. It'd be awesome. For everyone else, I did just want to let you know that we have another campaign running that you can actually go on the draw to win an Apple Watch if you submit your application by October 1st. And that could be for our full courses or just one course, if you're wanting to take a worship course or something like that. So feel free to pop your application in. And if you did want to hear more about Hillsong College, you can do so. Let me pop this in the chat for you. Here we go. So you can book a phone call with our team, or you can email us, and we would love to chat to you and just see how we can facilitate your next step towards Hillsong College. But we are really so grateful that you've joined us today, and we hope that you've learned a little bit more and gone away with a little bit more wisdom about how to pursue the calling of God in your life, and as a worship leader and a songwriter. And thank you for joining Online Open Day. You will receive an email really shortly with all the links to all the sessions so you can rewatch. But thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at Hillsong College very soon.